Yo, boxing aficionados, what's up? What's going on? Yo, check this out. I want to make this video. About a very specific subject, and that subject being the relationship between Shakur Stevenson and Top Rank, and by way of Bob Arum, right? So let's cut to the chase. Shakur Stevenson has a vision, a very clear vision of what he wants to achieve, his immediate goals. Obviously, the young man's very goal-oriented, very driven, very ambitious, and he himself has a plan for how he's going to get to where he wants to go, becoming a superstar. He sees it. He sees the goal. He sees the road, right? Bob Arum, the promotional company of Top Rank, right, would be very well advised to help him achieve his goals. Help him along the road to get to where he, not only to where he wants to go, but how he wants to get there. They need to become a vehicle for his dreams, lend themselves to become a vehicle for his vision, for his pathways, right? They need to forego, right, avoid becoming, in Shakur's mind, a hindrance to his proposed goals and you know, end game. They need to help him along, do what he feels he wants to do. Shakur Stevenson is very headstrong and very clear, very talented, very dedicated. But he's also the type of person who will hold a grudge moving forward down the lane. So if Bob Arum and Top Rank do not want to repeat the mistakes of the past, i.e., Floyd having to leave Top Rank to get to where he needed to go, to fulfill his vision of himself and his image and the way that he wanted to promote himself. If they want to avoid that scenario again with Shakur Stevenson, I would suggest that they help the kid do what they want, do what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. So Shakur Stevenson wants to unify the 130 division. What is that? The junior lightweight, super featherweight, whichever way you want to put it. Junior lightweight, super featherweight division, 130-pound division. He currently holds 2 belts in that division, as we all know, unless you've been living under a rock. If you're a boxing fan and don't know that he just unified against Oscar Valdez in the biggest fight of his career, in his 18th fight, and now is the holder of the WBC belt, as well as the WBO, and the linear belt, right? If you don't understand that, then you're probably not a boxing fan. But here it is. He has a very clear vision of how to get there. He knows what he wants to do, which is become undisputed at the super featherweight division. That's what he wants to do. It's not something that's beyond Top Rank's means to get done, right? It's not beyond their reach to attain that for him. Why? Because the WBA strap is currently held by Roger Gutierrez, I believe the guy's name is, who's promoted by Oscar De La Hoya, Golden Boy. And the IBF belt is held by Hasegawa, who's with Eddie Hearn, just recently signed with Eddie Hearn. I think he beat somebody who was an Eddie Hearn fighter, and then Eddie Hearn immediately signed him after, the upset or something to that effect. But the point is that these are two companies that Top Rank has done business with. Top Rank has done business with Golden Boy. They did the Joet Gonzalez fight, amongst others. They did the Mooney, the Mooney brothers, the guys from Australia against Franco, I believe. It's Mooney, Franco, whatever. They did those fights, and they've done a slew of fights. Oscar De La Hoya and Bob Arum have nothing in the way of an obstacle to make fights between them. They've shown that. Neither is it with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn makes a fight. Bob Arum makes a fight. They made the Lomachenko-Corolla fight. They made the Lomachenko, the guy that what's his name? Whatever. You know who I'm talking about. Campbell, they made the Campbell fight. They made the Lomachenko-Campbell, Lomachenko-Corolla. They made a slew of fights. Not just those two. They've made other fights. And there's no obstacle. But Bob Arum is saying that he's not interested in making those fights. Now, there's two ways of looking at this, right? I'm going to tell you. It could be a negotiations ploy. I'm hoping that Bob Arum is coming from an angle of it being a negotiations ploy, because you don't want to be too desperate in negotiating a fight, no matter what position you're in, right? So if you're Bob Arum and you are interested in Shakur Stevenson becoming undisputed, you don't state that. You don't state that because now you put yourself in a position where you are the buyer and not the seller. You become the buyer. You're begging. You're the one who's seeking, the one who's coming from a position of lack, rather than a position of power. Hey, I got Shakur Stevenson. He's a big fighter. If you want to make a fight with him, I'll give you X amount. And, you got Roger Gutierrez. He's not going to bring you any money. What is he, from Venezuela? He's not even Mexican, So it's not like you're making a lot of money from him. You make cash out and make a fight against Shakur, rather than having to now go to Oscar and Oscar going, well, this fight, Shakur, it could make him a star. He could beat Gutierrez, and that belt must mean something. So I want X amount for this fight and my fighter because Shakur wants him. He knows you need him for this belt. It's two different positions to be in. You don't want to give away your power in any negotiation, right? You don't want to give away your hand. So I can understand that if that's how Bob Arum is I can understand that if that's why Bob Arum is saying he's not interested in the Undisputed. Because the man's been around for 60 years in boxing. No matter how candid he is in an interview, he's always holding the back. He's something back, you know. He's never gonna show all his cards. So to that extent, I feel like that's what he's doing. And I think that Shakur is being a little overzealous and boisterous and doesn't understand the business nuances of, if you want that belt, act like you don't want it, rather than let everybody know that that's what you want, and now you're weakening your bargaining position. So if he's coming from that angle, fine. But if Bob Arum is truly not interested in making that fight, or is poo-pooing it and doesn't want to do Undisputed because there's no money in the Gutierrez fight, and then he's coming from the wrong position, because he will be a hindrance to Shakur's vision. And it's very important that Bob Arum learns from his from the Floyd Mayweather, Pretty Boy Floyd. Had Floyd asked for Oscar de la Hoya. You know, a lot of people think that Floyd left Bob Arum because of the money. It wasn't the money. Bob never stole money from him. He knows. He says that Bob Arum stole, but he's never brought anything to court. As a matter of fact, he paid $750,000 to get out of his contract. So if Bob owes you money, then why are you paying Bob to get out of your own contract? If he owes you money, then take him to court and get out the contract, right? But that's not what happened. He paid to get to void his contract. He paid out. He bought it out. But you know, so that he could pursue his vision, which was the Oscar de la Hoya fight. Bob Arum could have made that fight for Floyd when Floyd asked for it. Bob Arum chose not to do that because he also did not know how to promote Floyd's vision of himself as the anti-hero. Bob Arum was coming from a point where, different eras. He didn't know how to promote to the hip-hop community. Floyd knew that it was the anti-hero Money Mayweather vision and all that was going to sell for him. He basically became, $1 million Teddy DiBiase or kind of like Ric Flair type individual. Pretty Boy George, right? But that's not what Bob had intended for him. He didn't see him being able to promote him like in the way that Floyd felt he wanted to be promoted. And he's about to make the same mistake with Shakur Stevenson if he gets in the way of Shakur's vision. He needs to step back. He needs to make it happen. As far as making the fight happen for Hasegawa, that's an easy thing. Because when Todd DeBoff talked about Top Rank getting the ESPN deal, and even Bob Arum himself talked about Top Rank getting the ESPN deal, when they asked him how they're going to make fights between promoters, he said, well, easily, we make trades. That's what they said. That's the words coming out of Bob Arum's mouth, that came out of Bob Arum's mouth and Todd DeBoff. They were talked about making trades, right? They said, if we're strong in a division, you can give us a fighter. And if you're strong in a division, we can give you one of our fighters to fight against your champion, or in a division that you're strong in. And you let you be the lead promoter, And for the most part, they've held true to that. For the most part, they've held true to that. Top Rank is not going to get in the way of making a fight. Like they sent Jose Ramirez over to the zone against Maurice Hooker because Eddie Hearn thought that he had the bigger, big event in Dallas. Well, you know, so okay, go ahead. You know, so they're willing to do that in trade. So what do you trade for Hasagawa's belt? Well, you have Michaela Meyer. You have Michaela Meyer. Eddie Hearn has Alicia Baumgartner, right? Why don't you send Michaela Meyer, make a deal where Michaela Meyer, there's an understanding that when Michaela Meyer and Alicia Baumgartner unify, it'll be Eddie Hearn who gets to promote that fight, who gets to put it on the zone, and in turn, you send us Hasagawa so we could put him in the ring against Shakur Stevenson. Even Steven, right? We're strong at 130 with Shakur Stevenson. You do women's fighting. You do women's boxing. Eddie Hearn, you've been a lead promoter in that venue. You basically got that market locked down. Go ahead and make that event. Make that fight happen. Tit for tat. Tat for tit. You help me. One hand washes the other. So that's a very makeable fight. A very makeable fight. And, you know, it would be a shame, a travesty, if for some reason they don't pursue that fight. Because if your argument is, if you're Bob Arum and your argument is that there's no money in a Hasagawa fight, well, is there money in a Conceição fight? Shakur Stevenson against Robertson Conceição. Is that a fight that anybody's asking for? Shakur Stevenson right now owes no mandatories. He has basically a year before he has to fight a mandatory for either belt that he has, so the WBO or the WBC. And Robertson Conceição is rated #1 in both the WBO and WBC, but they're not going to call that fight anytime soon. And they sure wouldn't call and they sure as hell wouldn't call that fight over a unification versus Gutierrez or Hasagawa. So the coast is clear. The coast is clear, right? Shakur Stevenson, though he's big for 130, I don't think he really needs to go up. He makes 130 perfectly fine. He could dominate that division for, at least another year and a half. At least, right? He makes the weight easy. So while all the business at 135 gets cleared up, right, with Kambosos holding on to all 4 belts and Devin Haney having a rematch clause, those belts could probably be tied up for at least the next 12 to 16 months, working themselves out. You know, the June fight, then a rematch by the end of the year, and then you have another. If there's a rematch, I don't think Devin Haney's going to win, but that's a story for another day. Point is, Shakur does not need to move up. He could move up to 135, having unified 130. So now you have a succession. You have a succession of unified at 130, moving up to fight the unified champion at 135, who had beaten the guy that had unified 135, controversially, but now is moving up to get Josh Taylor at 140. So there's a storyline there that just makes sense. And still, it makes sense on, it's very symmetrical, right? It all makes sense. There's nothing convoluted about it. It's all well lubricated and oiled and machined and working itself through. So if that's what Shakur Stevenson wants, help him attain his goal so that he won't hold it against you down the line when his contract is out. maybe he'll remember, man, Top Rank, they helped me get Undisputed and then move me to 135. They're not in the way of my vision. I'm making good money, and they're helping me fulfill my dreams the way I want my dreams fulfilled. It's very important. Next level boxing talk, baby. I'm out.